Dr. Oz has led an enormously successful career on television, and now he's running to save our country just like I do from the radical left lunatics and maniacs. Dr. Oz is a man who truly believes in Make America Great Again or the MAGA movement. He believes it 100%, and he is in love with our country.
All right, so that was President Trump back in May, just before the Pennsylvania primary. President Trump praising Pennsylvania Senate candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's running against Democrat John Fetterman to fill the seat of retiring U.S. Senator Pat Toomey in the Keystone State in a race that is very, very close with 48 days to go. Joining us now for more is Dr. Mehmet Oz. Dr. Oz, good morning. Great to have you back on.
Thanks for having me.
So we're past Labor Day now, and it seems like voters are finally tuning in and deciding who they're going to vote for across America. Your opponent, he wants to end life without parole for convicted murderers. He also wants to release a third of all inmates if elected. How do you get that message to everyday voters in Pennsylvania?
Oh, it's hidden, believe me. You run advertisements where you literally put what his words are up on the screen. You allow statements that he's made on video to be played in front of audiences, and they look up from whatever they're doing. He is the most pro-murderer candidate in America right now, and it is stunning when you hear the specific cases, times when he has actually lobbied to release first-degree murders. There's a case recently where a man who had murdered his girlfriend's mother with scissors, Fetterman argued to release him. He'd learned yoga in prison. He'd gotten a horticultural degree, so Fetterman said it didn't square with him that this man was still in prison. Now, Josh Shapiro, who's running for governor and is the attorney general, had rejected that appeal from Fetterman, and they got into a tussle over it. But these are the kinds of cases when folks hear them and see them on television ads, they can't possibly vote for Fetterman. That's one of the reasons that the polls have closed so dramatically. But there's a deeper current here. We talk a lot about economic issues, and they're very important in Pennsylvania. But in Philadelphia, which is where 42% of the votes are, murder is a major problem because it's higher than it has ever been before.
Yeah.
And so when you've got that kind of a crisis happening right in your backyard, people focus on it. And we've got a governor's candidate whose policies are directly responsible for some of the atrocities we're seeing, the lawlessness. And I was in Philadelphia on Monday touring around an area called Kensington where, you know, that's where Rocky was running around through the streets.
Yep.
Right? So Kensington was not a bad area. I went to graduate school in Philadelphia, and I lived in West Philly, so you could go down to Kensington. Now you can't. It is the largest open-air drug market in the country. Much of that, again, caused because you have open borders, which Fetterman wants, fentanyl pouring across. You have an environment where the police are not allowed to do their job. You encourage people who are addicted to drugs to live their lives there. So that you have swaths of the city now covered with people with needles hanging out of their bodies. And guess who can't go home? People own the properties there. Shop owners can't open up. There's no tax revenue. So it actually hurts the city, but it's a reflection of the weak policies of Democratic leaders in the city. And John Fetterman has been all in on these ideas. They do not work. And as a doctor, I'll tell you, I might have the best ideas on how to take care of you. If they don't work, you're going to switch doctors.
Yeah.
It's time for America to switch healers.
Dr. Oz, this is Rick Grinnell. I have a question because, you know, we call you doctor, obviously, because you're a doctor.
Right.
And we have this fentanyl problem. We have this drug problem, which we keep calling a homeless problem. I'd love to know what you are doing specifically in Pennsylvania on this issue, because you are one of the people who could talk credibly about these issues as a doctor and as a politician who's trying to solve public policy problems.
Well, Rick, thanks for your years of service. I've been working around the issues of addiction for years. And people don't appreciate there are over 20 million Americans who have recovered from addiction. So it's real. We need to get those folks talking, because when you understand there are opportunities out there, no matter how dark the world seems, you start to rethink whether you want to be on drugs or not. And I was in Kensington, as I mentioned, Monday, and 4 addicts walked up to me. They recognized me from my television show, and they asked me for help. These people desperately want to get out of the doldrums of being stuck on drugs. They just
Dr. Oz, we have video of that, of you trying to help these people. In John Fetterman's Pennsylvania, this would continue. And this is a story that's being told in many American cities.
Wow.
Safe injection sites, these are things that John Fetterman is for. Your opponent, so he had a stroke. not long, I think 2 days before the primary in May. So because of that stroke and his medical needs right now, you have allowed him to use closed captioning during your debate October 25th, so 2 weeks before Election Day, if it even happens. You requested an additional 30 minutes for time in that debate, and he turned down that request, and you wanted the extra time just because of his medical needs. It's going to take him longer to answer questions. Where are we now with this debate?
Well, he wants to dodge debates, but it's not just questions from me that he's avoiding. He's not answering questions from the press. He's not taking voter questions. This is a real threat to democracy. Because if you don't hold your candidates accountable, if you don't push them to answer basic questions about their policies, and we've just mentioned a bunch, like legalizing all drugs, right, and heroin injection sites, well, if those are good for society, then tell us why you like them. Why are we going to see more of them? If they're a problem, like in Kensington, where you saw me pick up a bunch of people and take them to a detox center, well, that's, I ought to be able to ask you about that. He doesn't want that to happen. I had to squeeze him just to agree to this debate. We'll see if he shows, because his history, it doesn't show up. But he didn't show up as lieutenant governor, literally didn't go to work.
Right.
Didn't show up as mayor, again, literally didn't go to work. Doesn't do the job. He's not earned the respect of the people of Pennsylvania, and it's insulting to the voters that he would have delayed this debate so late in the game that they have to now make absentee decisions because they have the absentee ballots in their hands.
I know we have to wrap here. Dr. Oz, I just want to thank you for taking a moment to come off the campaign trail and to help addicts. I mean, think about that. Stopping campaigning to help addicts. Thank you. That's a human moment.
It really is. Dr. Oz, keep us posted on the progress of your race. I know the polls are extremely tight. Less than 50 days to go. We'll all be watching what happens there. Dr. Mehmet Oz, thank you.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the
truth.
No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let me decide.
Newsmax.
Real news
For real people.